turning.
It's a loose format where I keep the bit in the remote from the camera.
Don't fall off the chair. Lay down. Lay down.
After hours.
Yes, it is literally after hours as well. We've just shot.
We've just done hours. We've been shooting for hours. We got a dog.
We do. Yes, we do. Paul?
So, superhero fatigue.
Fatigue.
Fatigue, as they say in the funniest French lesson of your life when you're in year 7. Is there too much? Are we oversaturated? Are there too many superhero films? There is certainly a vast quantity of them. That is beyond dispute, I think.
Yeah. I suppose, much like the comics themselves, there are just simply lots of them. And that's where we're at. I mean, some are good, some are bad.
There were lots of them in the 90s and nobody wanted to touch them.
Yeah.
It's absolute poison not that long ago.
Yeah.
Really not that long ago as well. I mean, before, we talked about this before, but before like Blade and X-Men and stuff, like it just wasn't a thing. It just wasn't a thing. They tried, for some reason, I think Batman did well, but then they tried to do loads of the pulps. And like, so there's loads of... Yeah. You get a dog. It's a more relaxed format. You get a dog.
Calm down, Wilson.
It's gone extra mental.
What are you sniffing? Sniffing Ivan's dirty underpants.
His odour.
Winston, come here. Lay down, buddy. Good boy.
There we go.
Right.
Unedited, brilliant. Yeah, you just wouldn't touch it, like the Phantom and the Shadow and all that, and they didn't do brilliantly.
Yeah.
You know, you had like the Rocketeer and things like that, who weren't direct adaptations, but in that style. And then the accepted wisdom was it just wasn't done. So like there was the James Cameron Spider-Man script that sounded weird, the canon version. You know, we had the Tim Burton Batman films that did well, but you know, it's funny in a way. It's almost like Batman, just the 4 Batman films, if you like, were kind of the MCU of its day because it's the only one that worked. Like in terms of a franchise,
spread over 10 years, pretty much, or near enough.
Yeah, which
not 8 years.
8 years, which you know. 4 Batman films, they did 25, 24 Marvel films in the same period of time.
Yeah.
And the other thing is as well that this is worth stating again and again and again because the fucking lazy thing is to go like, oh wow, Marvel are just this mega all-conquering company. They weren't. They were in the shit. They nearly folded in the 90s. The reason their rights everywhere is because they had to sell off the family fucking jewels, the family silver, so to speak. It was... the fact that we got her is amazing because they went out and started a film studio on their own that Disney bought because Disney buy all things. That's how we got here. I mean, the plan to sort of chain these films together was always there, but it was in co-productions with Paramount and whoever to get them made.
Yeah.
I mean, I do find it slightly worrying.
Do you think the glut that we've got at the moment is because partly, obviously, the technical side of the film, you know, the special effects side now can keep up with what is required, but also that, you know, generally the people who are making the films now, or certainly the filmmakers, not necessarily the producers, but the studios, but the boots on the ground people are people who grew up with these things and who want them. I mean, I think it's not. I do think a lot of these are being made for people our age. They're not actually being made for, and they're being made by people our age or slightly older. You know,
it feels as if they were willed into existence to some degree.
Yeah.
I think so. It's kind of like much like in the comics. Really, they ended up being taken over by the people that read them as kids. So like this, like the comics in America, like DC and Marvel and whatever.
It's fine. Sorry. Carry on.
Dog bum. The people say we're unprofessional.
It's after hours.
The people who made these things, the people who were writing them originally, had all like killed fucking Nazis in World War II.
Yeah.
Been in the Air Force, had been on fucking Sword Beach. You know, there were all these grizzled old geezers that were sort of drafted. And then like loads of hippies come along that had read that shit and loved it, and suddenly, you know, and my understanding of that period of kind of going into the, you know, coming out of the Silver Age was that these people were going head to head with these sort of like psychedelic hippie fucks. They were completely different, you know, personas. And now we're in even, you know, in terms of American comics, we're even deeper into that because they're getting them for kind of the big hitting characters that are up 80 to 100 years old. You know. We're going to see 100 years of Batman and Superman in our lifetime, which is insane. I mean, because something like, for example, something that's often considered the first kind of fandom in the modern sense is Sherlock Holmes.
Right.
Now, if Sherlock Holmes was owned by a singular entity, and they, if the Strand magazine was still publishing Sherlock Holmes shorts in 2019, that's insane. It's madness. But we're probably going to see that. However, these things, because I enjoy the Marvel movies, by the way. I get what fucks me off is like it's this lazy thing intellectually where it's bargain basement fucking contrarianism, where you just sort of go like, well, I think they're stupid, and it's like, which therefore makes me clever. It's like, no, that doesn't work like that. You don't get a fucking eat a free pass.
Yeah, I think for me, the Marvel universe, now that we've reached Endgame, has done everything. I think with possibly one or two minor exceptions, has done pretty much everything I would want from a Marvel universe set of movies. And it's done it in breakneck speed, which it's produced a mixed bag, but generally very positive one. And I think that like you, I mean, I like them a lot, and I accept them for what they are. And when people sort of are really hard on certain ones, I go, why?
Well, it's kind of
up to you.
If you like them, you're stupid. If you don't like them, you're clever.
Yeah,
no, that's not. Have you heard the term cape shit?
No.
That's the term that film people on the internet use to make themselves feel clever.
Yeah.
Cape shit to describe superhero stuff, because it's not even a pun. It's not even a very good term. Like cape shit doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
It's just a wanky term. Like, and it holds no weight to me. And it's used by people who think, well, if I just say that, but don't get me wrong, there are many reasons. I'm not saying they're beyond criticism. I wouldn't dream of saying anything of the sort. And I do think, it is perhaps harmful to the wider kind of filmmaking community in that these things dominate all, and the fact it's all owned by Disney I find very sinister, and I'm not the guy to fucking go cheerlead for some corporation. I've enjoyed creatively what they've done. They're not all brilliant, but I've enjoyed the Marvel project.
Yeah, I think in that sense, what reason I would like the door to stay open at the moment is because I haven't found many of my favourite characters to have had satisfying movies in the last 20 years.
Such as
apart from Batman.
Right.
So I'm sort of more broadly, like certainly Superman being the big one. I really haven't found since Superman 3, I suppose.
The best Superman film.
The best Superman film. I've just found that to be a wholly unsatisfying experience, and I feel that there is still the great story to be told with those characters out there. And now is the time to be doing it, and I do think they bungled it, and it's a shame. But I would like the door to stay open for that to happen. But by the same token, as someone who works in the industry, I do see the superhero craze as being kind of emblematic of the squeezing of the middle. So in other words, they are occupying all of these mega budgets, they are justifying all of these mega budgets, and they are kicking out the speculative stuff that was made for 40, 50 million in the past.
And they're taking up all the screens in the cinemas.
Yeah.
That, it happens at every end of this.
Yeah.
They take up all the screenings, they use all the studio space, they use all the actors, they use all the engineers, they use all the money, and this is globally as well.
Yeah.
And there's a kind of, it's a kind of, I enjoy them for the most part. They're not all perfect.
Absolutely,
but it does seem to represent this slightly scary race towards homogeny. It's like this sort of...
I don't know. It's almost like they've reached some sort of critical mass where it's like they just can't stop, and they will just keep making money, and that's that. It will be interesting to see where things go, because arguably with Endgame, it's kind of ended. I know they're going to keep going. But in what capacity?
Well, now they have to do the whole thing again, but escalate it more.
Yeah.
And I'm just sort of, we're going to see this roll downhill eventually. I'm not saying it's going to be a catastrophe, but sooner or later people are going to lose interest. Yeah. There was a time again where this stuff was absolute poison, and I remember even 10 or 12 years ago, I sat in the canteen reading a Superman book. Well, I was reading a Justice League book. It was JLA Earth 2 by Frank Quitely and Grant Morrison, and someone come in and goes like, "Oh, what are you reading? Like this for kids, you fucking loser!" And like giving me, someone I knew, and it was kind of a bit of banter or whatever, but they meant it. Like, what are you reading kids books? That same person is on Facebook, fucking with a Flash profile picture, and it's like, oh, I can't wait to see Thor Ragnarok, and it's like,
But that's the side of it. Yeah, it's that herd mentality that I don't like about it. It's the fact that it's because it's now in people's view or purview or whatever you want to say.
People I remember literally calling me a loser for reading comics in school. And now, again, on Instagram or whatever, in a Forbidden Planet in Sheffield with a wedge full of fucking Deadpool books.
Yeah.
It's like, because you don't want to be the gatekeeping wanker, of course. At the same time, it's kind of like, fuck you. You rinsed me for this, and now it's fucking all good because they made... Well, because you don't have to read it.
Yeah.
But then you go and buy the books. And I don't know. It's a mixed bag because, again, I like the Marvel films. I like what they've done. I think it's created... there are problems at both ends of that because I think there are loads of people that have kind of rushed into that fandom who will get bored of it when the next thing comes along. Maybe we're due for, it's unlikely, but maybe we're due for a massive Western revival. Maybe sports films will be big. I can't predict the
Fistful of Lead is
it's available now.
Doing very well.
Now.
No, I agree. I suppose the trouble is that in a way there isn't the... They can keep, they've established now that they can reboot and restart and go back to the well and back to different, because there's so much material out there to draw from. And it's like, I do wonder if that is just going to be kept going and going and going until literally no one goes to see them. Because as well, as was firmly established with Batman and everything, is like there are tons of other markets around it. There's pre-sales, there's all sorts of stuff that goes into these things like franchising and everything, and it's like it's just too much of an industry, so it's almost self-perpetuating. It's like we were talking about with Vamp Four Stick, it's like that just had to come out, and it was like it was like almost like a big advert for toys. It didn't matter what it was like because it had to be this event.
Yeah, you've got a legal obligation to make and film.
Yeah.
So that's all that fucking matters, and you just race to get that done.
That's the cynical end of it. But whereas I think what Marvel have managed to do is they've managed to placate that, but also have some artistic merit and have some heart to what they're doing.
Well, that's the thing, because I think that one of the criticisms is, they just make comedies. It's like, well, they're not comedies. They're like definitely big comedic elements in lots of them, but they're kind of action comedy sci-fi things.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay, they can be accused of being a bit generic, but I maintain they've more so at the beginning, but they went out of their way to hire interesting filmmakers, and I still think that's Taika Waititi. I think the same thing with Thor Ragnarok, and his kind of feel is all over that. Like it feels like a Taika Waititi film, and as someone who's seen his movies, like I totally think that. And Jon Favreau is someone who made kind of like mid-budget indie comedies, and he directed Iron Man as an indie comedy. If you see how he directs all those dialogue takes, it's how he did it.
Yeah.
And okay, I'm not the hugest fan of Joss Whedon, but Joss Whedon was the right place, right time for the Avengers, and he'd written fucking Marvel comics before.
Yeah.
Like, I just think there are example after example, not always, like Louis Leterrier for the Hulk. I think he's a really middle of the road boilerplate fucking director, and that's the film, most generic as shit film. Kenneth Branagh made a Thor film. We live in a world where Kenneth Branagh made a Thor film.
Yeah.
For fuck's sake. Joe Johnston again. I've said before, I don't really like the first Avenger, particularly I find it quite boring, but I love what it's trying to do. I love its style, and Joe Johnston's kind of a... he's an interesting pick because he's kind of a journeyman director. He's never had his masterpiece, you know what I mean? But like, it's an interesting choice.
Yeah.
And Edgar Wright was there, but that fell to shit. Went to shit. But like they were interesting choices. They weren't. If you look at fucking DC, who do they get for Green Lantern? Martin Campbell. Nothing wrong with Martin Campbell, but he's not.
Was he the right choice?
Is he an auteur? Is he a particularly singular filmmaker?
There's again. I think DC aren't. They're sort of making the. I suppose they would argue we're making the kind of quirky choice, but not really. It's like, and it's like putting Ben Affleck in as Batman. I'm sorry, that has never worked. Putting a big name actor in that role or any role like that doesn't work. They bring too much baggage, and that's not their fault. It's just a product of success.
That's why Henry Cavill was a good choice. Unfortunately, they gave him the wrong director.
By and large, I think they've cast Superman absolutely right in all media and in all films, and most examples of it. I can't really think of a bad casting choice for Superman. Actually, I think they've generally done a very good job. Don't go walkabout. Come here. No. Lay down. Good boy. I think they've done a really good job with that. And it was smart to surround him with bigger actors as well. No, stay there. So it's. But there's very questionable decision making going on there, and it's just not. I don't know what it is with DC anymore. I thought I did. And
well, they've sort of fucked the whole thing off now, haven't they? And they're just doing random shit. Like, it's just like, okay, we're not doing a universe anymore. And they had that all handed to them on a plate. They had the mechanism of Warner Brothers behind them. They could have done, that was theirs to take. They could have even overtaken Marvel. That their superheroes have had the larger brand recognition.
Yeah.
I say this again, and I don't want the same fucking. I got one guy hounded me for like 3 years because I said nobody ever heard of Iron Man before 10 years ago, and it's fucking true. I'm not saying Iron Man's a bad character, and he come like, me and my friend Keith like Iron Man. It's like, yeah, you and your friend Keith aren't everyone. Like, Iron Man was a fucking straight up D-list. Like, so was Captain America, really. Like, the Marvel heroes that people knew were the X-Men, kind of, but really, like, Spider-Man and the Hulk were the most visible.
Iron Man had his own cartoon, and it was in that mould of what was happening in the 90s, which you had the Spider-Man cartoon, you had the X-Men cartoon, and you had Iron Man cartoon.
And Fantastic Four. But those were both the lesser.
Yeah,
of
they were, but they were there. But it was, I think that was about it. I remember having a toy of Iron Man from that cartoon, but yeah, it wasn't, and it was sort of. I remember even when the film came out, and actually, even if you look at the film now, it still has that first Iron Man film still has elements to it that are like, right, like as in that it's not 100% sure of itself, but that's okay. That's all right. It's
a fun, clunky, fun, chunky kind of. And I'd say one thing for sure, like there are loads of. Marvel have been super tight with their continuity compared to other people.
Yeah.
But on the whole, like, there are loads of things that just don't add up retrospectively. Definitely it was supposed to be realistic and techie.
Yeah.
It wasn't supposed to be about magic and da-da-da. Yeah. Definitely he was supposed to be the first superhero ever.
Right.
And, like, the thing about S.H.I.E.L.D., like, he keeps calling it, Strategic Homeland Enforcement, Intervention Enforcement and Logistics Division or whatever.
Yeah.
And then at the end he goes, we're calling it S.H.I.E.L.D., which we have done for 60 years. Is the part that's missing. And that are massively publicly visible. It turns out to have been publicly visible for a really long time. All that. It doesn't quite add up. So clearly it's not perfect in terms of its continuity, but they were doing something different with it, I think.
I agree. And it's even in the second one where it's like Captain America's shield uses it to prop up some of his arc reactor or whatever, and it's you're right, well, whatever. But
a lot of that,
it's in the background in the first one, isn't it, or something?
Sorry?
In the first one, is it the background or something?
I think, isn't they supposed to be like in the ice in Hulk or something?
I don't know.
Shit.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, a lot of and this is another thing as well. People act like Iron Man was this guaranteed success, and it's like, right, okay, no offense. If you're 18 now, you were 8 then. And I don't mean to patronise you, but you weren't viewing that landscape as it was. Iron Man was a punt, and it wasn't the hugest budget. It was a decent sized budget. It didn't have the hugest stars. Robert Downey Jr. had screwed up and had a comeback like 3 times because of drugs and stuff. Bless him. He's had a fucking, he was not a big star. They wanted Tom Cruise. Like, there are a million reasons why Iron Man shouldn't have worked. But just on virtue of being a good film and an entertaining, straightforward film, it showed you something that perhaps you hadn't necessarily seen this before, because it's not the same as Spider-Man or Superman, and it wasn't they're not kind of earnest. They're a little bit they were a bit kind of snarky and cynical, and with like the odd kind of sex joke thrown in or whatever. It's not like the clean-cut Spider-Man, Sam Raimi, Silver Age thing. It was modern. And that's the foundation upon which these things are built. I mean, what fucking annoys me is like they're all the same. It's like, yeah, no shit, they're all sci-fi, action, comedy, superhero films. If they do, if Marvel, they're not going to make a fucking black and white documentary about Hungarian jazz. Like, of course they're not. Of course they're all the same. What do you expect?
Yeah.
I don't. That's not a clever comment.
I suppose I know what in some of them do hit very similar beats, and some of them
absolutely,
you can tell when some of them haven't had that much thought put behind them.
Because they're all based on the same material.
Yeah,
that's why.
But you know what? I'll take it. And then, so sort of coming back to the fatigue thing, is just like, yes, I do think there are. One could argue there are too many. What I think the mold that's been broken by Marvel is the fact that you can't really say there are too many superhero films, because they're all because they've got those sort of Avengers, what would you call them, like stakes in the ground that they're kind of anchored to.
Iron Man 25.
Yeah, but it's but you know what I mean. So it's like these are all worlds that all culminate around. They all revolve around these other films.
They all ultimately have to share the same rules and grounding.
Yeah, so it's kind of like to sort of say like Ant-Man and the Wasp is one too many superhero films. It's like, well, but it's just another episode in a wider thing. that's why I think it'll be interesting to see after Endgame if they're not going to have that clear structure of like, and now another Avengers film. We're all building to a thing, which they don't have anymore.
Well, I believe they do. It is phased. We're now in phase 4. So it would appear there is an overarching plan. It's whether or not that plan is as good as it's going to take.
Yeah.
I think is the thing. I mean, it's a tough one to imagine the future here because, like, it's all well and good to say, well, it's not going to work, but lots of people thought that when it started. And maybe, hey, look, that fucking 10 years, Jesus Christ. You know what I
think
mean?
it can work. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think if they make the right decisions, I think it can work. I don't have a problem. And it's nice that they've got, I think, although I may, you may disagree with me on this, that I think they've got a really strong Spider-Man.
No, I agree.
For it to all revolve. When I say you, I mean them, really.
Oh, sorry.
Not so much you. Cause
Twitter apparently disagrees with you. They're not fans. But I really fucking like this Spider-Man. I really like Far From Home.
I like, I haven't seen
it. You haven't seen Far From Home. It's really good.
I really want to
Turns out Spider-Man was a ghost.
Oh.
That's a Fifth Element. No, it's not. It's a Sixth Sense joke. The sequel to The Fifth Element.
Yeah. The Seven Samurai. It came later.
Oh, I could so make a sequel to this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Saffron. Yeah, that would have been a better one. So that almost feels like a thing unto itself now. They've got such a strong sense of unity on that in that universe that I think it's really what's going to happen around all that as far as what DC's going to do. It's funny, you know what, if DC had got a proper universe off the ground that felt like it was built in the same way, I think that would have been a fatiguing thing. Because I'd have been going, oh God, right, so I have to get up to speed with two universes.
Two concurrently functioning.
You know, as it is, they've just utterly fumbled. It's been
like interesting to see how they would have eaten into each other's numbers.
It's a bit like a kid watching his older brother playing rugby or American football on the field, and he's running along with the ball trying to kick it and do everything, but he keeps dropping it and falling over and hitting his head. And that's pretty much kind of what... But he's on steroids or something and has the best coach. I don't know.
I wonder if we'd probably have some kind of... Because imagine if... I don't know, let's just say Justice League Annihilation. Right. The Justice League culmination of the DC movie universe that came out over 10 years. Imagine if that opened like around the same time as Endgame. Because then the box office presumably would have been...
I guess.
Torn in half, or there'd be a lot of overlap. You would definitely get, because DC and Marvel have always had those psycho fans that treat it like some kind of religion, and I think that would have been magnified.
Will you imagine if Batman Begins into Dark Knight Rises, had been the kickoff point, even if applied retroactively? So say Man of Steel tied up with that Batman in a Batman versus Superman, but it was. You prick! If that had been what it was, then I think that would have been a smart way for DC to steal a march on Marvel in a way. And if they then built from there and they'd then gone and done their Aquaman and their Wonder Woman and all that sort of stuff, but it had the backbone of and Superman and Batman. And that Batman then had legs, and I do think Christian Bale could have gone on and done it. You would have had to have presumably, crossed his palms with silver several times over, but I think it would have been worth it, and I think actually that universe could have gone into it. You just don't need, I think, because he was like, no, not without Chris Nolan, but it's like, yeah, but mate, there's so much they could do with that, but he was Christian Bale.
My thing is and was Green Lantern.
Yeah,
just suck it up, keep it in continuity, bring Ryan Reynolds back 5 films later, and make jokes about it there. Yeah, don't bulk. Make that film. Green Lantern's crime was just being boring, and fucking Taika Waititi's in that. He's his mate.
Of course he is. Yeah.
It's really weird. I watched it the other day. I was just like, it's really strange. Yeah. But just stick with it. It's not like it wasn't the hugest flop ever, and just suck it up, carry on. The difference is. That was horrifying. That was really scary. The difference is they released the Incredible Hulk first.
It's watching the replay.
I use the replay on the screen. Yeah. It's like they released the Hulk first instead of Iron Man, and then Marvel just gave up.
Yeah.
Like they really, I think they had it in the palm of their hand there, and I think that's where they fucked it up.
Yeah.
Doing new Batman, and then there was fucking. There was the Justice League film as well by George Miller. That was which is going to be its own little thing.
But that's the thing when you, I mean. It's difficult because I have banged the drum for sort of doing concurrent Elseworld stories, and I think Joker would be potentially one of those.
Yeah. I've joked about that today, but I'm quite up for that being good.
I'm quite up for that happening, but I think in that instance, when you had Christian Bale, Brandon Routh, as it was at the time, to then have Armie Hammer, who was the guy who's going to be Superman, whatever.
I can't remember, but whatever. Yeah.
You know, if you were then going to have those two,
it was supposed to be its own separate thing, which is bonkers.
That's what I mean. It's like,
that's
well, then,
really weird.
when I say Elseworlds, I don't mean like
the whole
totally
world.
parallel universe. And also there's an Elseworlds thing, and then there's just another version of the same thing, which is like, well, that's weird.
I think we are now with Spider-Verse coming out and with Endgame, mainstream audiences are now primed for multiverse alternate timeline versions of things, which was unthinkable once.
Yeah.
Like that was the mad excesses of comics that you could never make into films are now absolutely part of it.
Yeah.
We've got into that with mainstream audiences, which I'm quite excited about because I've always liked that
No,
stuff.
I am. Because those sorts of things are great ways to explore why the character's so important and what makes them indelible and what. Yeah, no, they are, and it's just a little thing you have to accept, and then it's like opens up the door to an awful lot of great stuff. So no, I'm excited by that.
I thought Spider-Verse is my favourite Spider-Man film now.
I'd love to see it. I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen it.
No,
Oh, it's
not seen
fucking brilliant. I really like it.
I'm definitely up for seeing
I like it a lot. We're running out of time here, but it's going to kind of just roll to a stop anyway because it's after hours. I find it interesting that I've always said that Marvel, cinema and TV have blurred their lines. And I've always said that the Marvel project is the world's biggest superhero TV series, right? And like Stranger Things is on TV, but we talked about earlier, it's an 8-hour film.
Yeah.
These things are blurred. They've basically done over, I guess, billions of dollars and a decade. They've done the world's largest TV show in the cinema, complete with a 2-part finale, and it's 24 episodes. Which is there's less of that now because it's kind of 12, 13. But TV shows for the most part, and lots still are, were American ones, 24 episode seasons. And it fits very neatly, very expensively.
Yeah.
And it's long because they're 1.5 to 3 hours a chuck. It's the world's biggest, most expensive TV show ever.
Yeah.
You'd
be able to buy it as a box set.
Yeah, I mean, which kind of makes me think, and it's not the same, and I'm not just trying to defend some big company, but if you put on a box set of Sopranos and go, all these episodes are the same. It's like, well, yeah. It's part of a larger story.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah.
But I get that complaint because it's existing in a medium where that's not supposed to be the case.
True, true. But I think if they were all stylistically very different, you'd have a problem with it as well. Because you'd be going, if you kept the actors the same, but Iron Man 3 was... I mean, arguably that did change gear a bit stylistically, but again, if that had been left to Shane Black's complete devices, or if let's pick a better example, I don't know, but Thor Ragnarok had been more in keeping with, or I don't know, that's a bad example as well because that is different. You know what I mean, though. If they'd been wildly different from one to another, it wouldn't feel cohesive.
And again, they're not going to do a fucking documentary about the Armenian genocide. They're fucking superhero films.
Yeah.
They're, of course, there to some degree.
Yeah.
I don't like all of them, but complaining that they're the same is asinine.
Yeah.
Complaining that they've dominated the landscape, they've changed the market, they're forcing people out of business, they're taking over the screens, they're taking all of the workforce. Yeah, I feel that's legitimate. I think there's a legitimate political, economic argument for that. The content of the films themselves is far from the issue, in my view.
I think as well, it's part of a shifting landscape of filmmaking that I find all at once frustrating, but understandable as well. And it's, I suppose, it's closed off a lot of the industry to newcomers. That's the frustration. Don't get me wrong. I know they've cast in the first instance they cast fairly unknown, like your Chris Hemsworth and stuff like that, but. That's in the very tippity top roles. So there's like a handful of people they've reached out to that for, and the rest of it's all just the same folks. And it's like, I don't know, and I don't want to rail against that, but it's just I just think it is that. But then I do think it's delivered for audiences a very satisfying story and a very satisfying.
But Avengers Endgame was a cultural moment.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, and if you were in those screenings on opening night, that was a cultural moment, and people were gasping.
Yeah.
There's something electric about seeing that, and you love it or hate it. Call people who enjoyed them morons, fill your fucking boots, but it's a fact.
Yeah.
It's a fact. No one even heard of Thanos fucking 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You know. Well, run out of time, innit? There's no more of this, so no more superhero films ever. Bye. Support your 7th or 8th favourite YouTube channel by buying crap, tat, junk, hogwash and filth at redbubble.com/people/Valverde shop.